Hello, kindred spirit. If you've ever felt trapped within the incessant chatter of your own thoughts, if the relentless stream of worries, judgments, and desires has left you feeling exhausted and disconnected from your deepest self, then you are precisely where you need to be. Perhaps you've yearned for a silence that transcends mere quiet, a clarity that cuts through the mental fog, or a profound sense of identity that isn't dictated by your fleeting emotions or external circumstances. That persistent feeling of being lost in the labyrinth of your own mind. The struggle to find genuine peace amidst internal turmoil. This is a universal human experience. And it is precisely this suffering that has guided you here. You clicked on this video not by chance, but because your soul is ready to embark on the self-inquiry that reveals the true I beyond the mind. Ramana Maharshi. Allow this moment to be your invitation to a radical journey inward, a direct path to uncover the unchanging, boundless awareness that lies beneath the surface of all mental activity. Let us together shed the illusion of a separate, limited self and awaken to the profound freedom of your true nature. The fundamental practice begins with the simple, yet devastatingly profound question of who am I, which acts as a sword, severing the roots of false identification. Whenever a thought arises, whether it is a mundane concern or a spiritual revelation, the practitioner must immediately catch it and ask to whom this thought has occurred. The inevitable answer will always be that the thought has occurred to me, which then prompts the ultimate investigative strike of asking from where this me originates. This relentless tracking of the ego back to its source starves the mind of the outward attention it desperately needs to survive and propagate its endless stories. As the seeker persistently redirects their focus inward, the dense fog of psychological time begins to dissipate, revealing the silent and eternal background of pure, unconditioned awareness. This inward journey is not a process of acquiring new knowledge or accumulating spiritual experiences, but rather a radical unlearning and discarding of everything that is not real. The ego will inevitably resist this dismantling by generating intense feelings of fear, doubt, and distraction, attempting to pull the attention back into the familiar territory of suffering. It is precisely in these moments of fierce inner resistance that the seeker must remain absolutely resolute, holding onto the I feeling with the grip of a drowning person holding onto a lifeline. The mind cannot be destroyed by another part of the mind, just as a thief cannot be expected to act as the policeman who arrests himself. Therefore, the dissolution of the ego happens only when the mind is swallowed by the blinding light of the true self, leaving nothing but the pristine emptiness of pure being. As the investigation deepens, the boundary between the observer and the observed begins to collapse, exposing the profound truth that separation is merely a cognitive hallucination. The seeker discovers that the entity they have always considered to be their core identity is nothing more than a phantom, a temporary shadow dancing on the screen of eternity. This realization does not bring about a state of blankness or void, but rather an overwhelming explosion of boundless presence that transcends all conceptual understanding and verbal description. The individual consciousness merges seamlessly into the universal awareness, just as a river loses its name and form the moment it finally empties into the vast and fathomless ocean. In this state of absolute surrender, the burden of personal doorship is completely annihilated, and life begins to flow with a spontaneous and effortless grace that requires no mental intervention. The practice of self-inquiry must be sustained continuously, not merely as a temporary meditation technique, but as a constant and unbroken undercurrent of one's entire existence. Whether one is engaged in intense physical labor, conversing with others, or resting in solitude, the inner anchor of awareness must remain firmly rooted in the source of the I. The external circumstances of life are no longer seen as obstacles to spiritual realization, but rather as the very fuel that drives the investigative fire ever deeper into the heart. Every emotional trigger, every painful memory, and every fleeting desire becomes a precious opportunity to trace the disturbance back to the false self that claims ownership of it. Through this unrelenting vigilance, the mind is gradually stripped of its outward momentum and is forced to subside into the silent sanctuary of the spiritual heart. Ultimately, the seeker realizes that the true self is not a distant goal to be achieved in some hypothetical future, but the ever-present reality that is already shining right now. The profound tragedy of human existence is that humanity searches endlessly in the external world for the peace and fulfillment that is already their inherent nature and birthright. The illusion of bondage is created solely by the mind's incessant movement, and liberation is nothing more than the cessation of this unnecessary and exhausting mental agitation. When the I thought is finally traced back to its primordial source, it vanishes entirely, revealing the majestic and unalterable truth of non-dual awareness that has never known birth or death. The seeker is then left in a state of natural and effortless absorption, resting eternally in the supreme silence that is the ultimate expression of the divine reality. Topic 2. The dissolution of the phantom ego. The mechanism of the ego relies entirely upon the continuous association of the pure consciousness with the physical body and the countless stream of psychological narratives. When the seeker diligently applies the method of self-inquiry, this unholy alliance is violently disrupted, causing the false self to lose its foundational grip on the individual's perception of reality. The phantom ego is exposed as a mere reflection, a borrowed light that possesses no independent existence when severed from the infinite source of the Supreme Self. As the attention is fiercely held within, the mental tendencies that have been fortified over countless lifetimes begin to wither away from a profound lack of conscious nourishment. This internal starvation of the mind is the true essence of spiritual austerity, a silent revolution that overthrows the tyrannical rule of the conceptual intellect. The profound silence that emerges from this relentless investigation is not the mere absence of noise, but a dynamic and vibrant presence that contains the entire universe within its depths. The practitioner discovers that the mind is essentially a ghost, an apparition that only appears real because the light of awareness is mistakenly projected onto its fleeting forms. By withdrawing this projected light and turning it back upon itself, the ghost immediately vanishes, leaving only the undeniable certainty of absolute existence and pure consciousness. This radical shift in perception transforms the entire experience of life, as the world is no longer seen as a collection of separate objects, but as a continuous manifestation of the divine self. The seeker realizes that they are not a fragile entity moving through a hostile universe, but the very space of awareness within which the entire cosmos arises and subsides. To navigate this profound transition, the spiritual aspirant must cultivate a burning desire for liberation that eclipses all other worldly ambitions and superficial attachments. This intense yearning acts as a powerful magnet, drawing the scattered rays of the mind inward and focusing them into a singular, laser-like point of concentrated awareness. The ego will employ its most cunning deceptions to derail this process, offering profound spiritual insights and mystical visions to distract the seeker from the ultimate goal of self-annihilation. The true investigator must remain entirely unimpressed by these subtle traps, continuously asking who is experiencing these phenomena and relentlessly returning to the source of the I. Only by maintaining this uncompromising stance can the seeker pierce through the final veils of illusion and enter the sacred chamber of the spiritual heart, where the absolute truth resides. As the false identity crumbles, the heavy burden of past regrets and future anxieties evaporates. As these psychological constructs can only exist within the framework of linear time created by the mind, the realization dawns that time itself is a mental projection, and the true self exists only in the eternal now, completely untouched by the relentless march of temporal events. In this state of timeless presence, the concept of spiritual progress loses all meaning, for one cannot progress toward a reality that is already the fundamental basis of their existence. The seeker understands that enlightenment is not an acquisition of a new state, but merely the removal of the ignorance that concealed the ever-present perfection of the natural state. The individual drops all striving and effort, surrendering completely to the supreme intelligence that orchestrates the magnificent dance of existence without the need for a personal doer. The integration of this profound realization into daily life marks the final phase of the spiritual journey, where the inner silence remains undisturbed amidst the chaotic activities of the external world. The liberated sage functions in society with perfect efficiency and deep compassion, yet remains inwardly detached, knowing that the entire play of life is merely a divine dream. Actions flow spontaneously from the source of pure awareness, completely free from the karmic entanglements of personal desire, selfish motivation, and egoic calculation. The presence of such a realized being acts as a silent catalyst, effortlessly transmitting the grace of the self to all those who are receptive to the profound truth of non-duality. The sage's mere existence becomes a living testament to the ultimate possibility of human consciousness, demonstrating that true freedom is found only in the complete surrender of the false self. The ultimate revelation of self-inquiry is the absolute certainty that there is only one infinite reality, and that reality is the very essence of what you truly are. The mind, the body, the world, and the universe are all transient appearances floating upon the vast and fathomless ocean of unconditioned, eternal awareness. To abide continuously in this realization is the highest purpose of human incarnation, the ultimate fulfillment of the soul's long and arduous journey through the labyrinth of illusion. The seeker is invited to drop all conceptual burdens, to cease all mental wandering, and to simply be the silent, witnessing presence that illuminates all existence. This is the supreme truth imparted by the great sages, a timeless wisdom that endlessly calls the wandering mind back to its eternal home in the spiritual heart. There is a difference between living lost in thoughts and recognizing that which observes the thoughts. Ramana Maharshi taught that true peace does not arise from trying to control the mind. It arises when attention returns to consciousness itself. It was based on this teaching that the school of self-investigation was born, a private community deeply focused on self-inquiry, atma, fi, iche, hara, recognition of the observer, silent observation. The focus here is simple and direct: to learn how to investigate who it is that thinks, who feels, who suffers, who observes everything. Instead of fighting against the mind, you will learn to observe the mind. Instead of feeding the ego, you will learn to recognize the silent presence that exists before it. Inside the community, you will have access to guided self-inquiry practices, who am I? Silent observation exercises, teachings on consciousness and the observer, meditations focused on recognizing presence, content about ego and mental identification, deep reflections inspired by Ramana Maharshi, exclusive weekly videos, audiobooks, and transformative materials. New content is added every week. The purpose of the School of Self-Investigation is not to offer more distractions for the mind. It is to help you recognize, in a direct and practical way, that which remains silently observing everything. There, the subject goes much deeper, with many daily practices. The link is in the pinned comments. Now we say goodbye. Until the next video. Stay at peace. Until next time.